Well, hi everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the Social Strategy Mum podcast. Some of you might be joining me here live on Facebook. Some of you are probably going to see this down the track on YouTube. And for some of you, you'll listen to it on the podcast. But it's kind of fitting that there's so many ways for you to see and hear this episode because today's topic is all about increasing your reach and how 2020 is going to be all about reach for Social Strategy Mum and about how I think that you should have a focus also on reach for 2020. So let's get into it and let's talk about some aspects of reach and why I think this is important and all of those kinds of things. So firstly, what is reach? Well, basically, it's all about the number of people that you are getting your message in front of, the number of people that you are having the opportunity to talk to. And there's lots of different ways that you can kind of talk about the sphere of people that you are talking to in your business. Some people will talk about this as like a funnel and talk about the number of people that you've got coming into your funnel. Some people will talk about it as your community. One phrase or term that I really like is the idea of an ecosystem. And that's because I like the idea that it's kind of interdependent and it's related, because all the different parts of our social media for our business are definitely interrelated. And so when it comes to my ecosystem for my business, I've got my podcast, I've got the website, I've got my Facebook, my Instagram, my Pinterest, my YouTube. I've got Facebook Messenger, which is something I'll be using more of in the coming weeks. Lots of different kind of pieces of the puzzle and different ways that I can reach people and share my message with people. So what are you doing right now to grow your ecosystem? Because growing your reach is super important for growing your business. If you are not growing your reach, you are basically speaking to the same people over and over again. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but what can happen is that our focus can be on just talking to those same people over and over again. And the missing piece is that we're not actually adding new people in. We're not bringing new people in and talking to new people about what it is that we can do to help them, how it is that we work, sharing our tips and tricks, all of those kinds of things. And so we end up with an audience that is hearing the same thing over and over again. Some of that audience will buy from us. Some of that audience won't buy from us. But in the end, we're not actually bringing in those new people. And so that is really what 2020 is going to be all about when it comes to Social Strategy Mum. I have an amazing group of loyal ladies that have been following along with me. It has grown immensely over the last few months, but I know that the key to increasing my impact and increasing my income, just like I help my clients do, is for me to increase my reach and to get my message in front of more people. So I thought what I would do is take you through a few ways, a few things that I'm going to be doing to increase my reach and grow my reach in 2020. And just talk a little bit about each of those things, because for a lot of you that are watching or listening, these will be things that you might want to think about doing in your business too. Now, the first thing that I want to say is you absolutely do not need to all of a sudden tomorrow start doing all of these things at the same time. In fact, I would really suggest that you do not get caught into feeling like you need to do that, because there are lots of different ways to grow your reach. It is going to depend on where your audience is and who they are. It's also going to depend on the amount of time that you have available to you. And that is going to become very obvious when I talk about the first way that I'm going to be increasing my reach. And you right now are part of that process of increasing my reach. So the first change that I'm making for 2020 is that not only am I going to have the podcast going out each week, but I am going to be creating that podcast based off of a Facebook Live that I'll be doing exactly like this one. And that Facebook Live will also be appearing on YouTube as a YouTube video, and it will also get uploaded onto my IGTV channel. So the idea here is a few things. Firstly, I am acutely aware that within my audience, there are people with all different learning styles and all different preferences when it comes to consuming content. And so one of the most important things for me was making sure that people could consume that content in whatever which way is best for them. So by having the podcast, we've got the auditory learners covered, and the people who, like me, like to go for a walk or do their exercise and listen to a podcast. By having that podcast over on the website and as a blog, it also gives people the opportunity to read that information for those people that prefer to consume information by reading. And then by having the video content, it means that those people who, like me, are visual learners and learn best when it comes to actually watching something, you'll have a plethora of platforms to choose to be able to see the information and the tips and tricks on video. So part of increasing my reach is to make sure that this information is available to all of the different learning styles. Along with that, increasing my reach is making this podcast and Facebook Live available on lots of different platforms. That means that I'm giving myself the opportunity to get in front of different audiences on different platforms, because just like people have learning preferences, they also have platform preferences. And some of these platforms have very, very different purposes to each other. For example, we come onto Facebook and Instagram as social media to scroll through the feed, to look at pictures, to read, to watch video. Whereas we would go to YouTube or to Pinterest to search for something and to actually gain information. And so because of that, it can be very different audiences. It can also be different audiences in terms of demographics. Some people just love one particular platform and never spend any time on another platform. So basically, by having this going out in lots and lots of different places, I'm creating the opportunity to get in front of more people and grow my reach. Now, I need to put a caveat around this and make sure that you understand that it is the same content that's going out in all of those different places. I am not going to create separate videos and podcasts for all of the different areas. I'm literally going to do it one time, and then me and my team are going to repurpose the absolute crap out of it and make sure that it goes out in all of these different places. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a lot more work that's going into it, but I've decided that that little bit of extra work that does need to happen in order to repurpose it is going to be more than worthwhile when it comes to making sure that it's getting in front of more people and I'm growing my reach. So that is my plan for the podcast and the Facebook Lives, and the way that I have decided to tweak that part of my business so that I can absolutely maximize the number of people that are seeing that content and consuming that content. The other thing that I need to say about increasing my reach over 2020 is that I'm going to have even more of a focus on things like interviews, collaborations, guest podcasting, all of those kinds of things. I have done quite a bit of all of those things along the way. I absolutely love to have guests on the podcast, and we'll still be doing that even now in the Facebook Live format. I love having the opportunity to pick their brains and to share their expertise with my audience, and also to have the opportunity to speak to their audience as well. So that is another thing that I'm going to be doing in 2020 to make sure that I'm growing my reach. When it comes to collaborations, there are so many amazing ways to work with other businesses out there. So it's really good to start thinking about who you know that might have a really similar target audience to you, but does something completely different. And that is an awesome place to start when it comes to leveraging collaborations. So definitely have a think about that, and you'll see a lot more collabs from me in 2020. The third thing that I'm going to be doing when it comes to increasing my reach in 2020 is I'm going to be continuing, but also ramping up how consistent I am in Facebook groups. This is not only my Facebook group Juggling, Motherhood and Business Building. If you're not part of that group, make sure you head on over and join us. But also in other people's Facebook groups where I do have the opportunity to lead with value, to give tips and tricks, but also to promote what I'm doing. So if you don't have a little bit of a strategy around other people's Facebook groups that you could be making the most of, maybe it's time to have a think about that. Also though, if you have a Facebook group of your own, it's probably time to try and think of ways that you can really up the ante with your own Facebook group. And if you haven't already listened to the couple of podcast episodes from late last year, all about growing and nurturing your Facebook group, make sure that you head on over and check out those episodes as well. So we've got the podcast Facebook Live repurposing. We've got interviews and collaborations. We've got Facebook groups. What are the last two things that I'm going to be doing to grow my reach in 2020? The next thing that I'm going to be focusing much more on and have been over the last few weeks is Pinterest. Now, if Pinterest is not something that you have considered for your business, I really suggest that you do. And if you rewind all the way back to, I think it was episode 3 of the podcast, I did an episode all about whether Pinterest is right for your business. So if you've been thinking about it, make sure you head on over and listen to that episode, and it will give you some great insights as to the types of businesses and where you need to be in business in order to be able to leverage Pinterest. But if you have a website, if you have blogs, if you have vlogs, if you have a podcast, if you have regular content going out on your website and you are not using Pinterest, then you are missing a massive opportunity to grow your ecosystem and grow your reach with Pinterest. Pinterest is a buyer-ready platform. People come on there to search for information. And so if you have the opportunity and the time available to you, it is definitely worth looking into what you can be doing to maximize your impact when it comes to Pinterest. It is a different beast to social media. It is predominantly a search engine. And so there are a few little tips and tricks and tweaks that need to come, when you're dealing with Pinterest. But Pinterest is going to be a major focus for Social Strategy Mum moving forward. We're already laying the foundations in place, getting some testing and tweaking done with our pins, and moving into the space of advertising as well, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. But yes, Pinterest, big one for Social Strategy Mum in 2020, and something that you really should consider having as part of your strategy to grow your reach. All right, that brings me to number 5, and this is the last one. So number 5, another big part of growing the reach of Social Strategy Mum in 2020 is Facebook and Pinterest advertising. Now, this is something that a lot of people consider. And every now and then I have to say to somebody, I'm not really so sure that you're actually ready to put money into advertising. And that's not a reflection on anything other than your business needs to be in a certain position, and your foundations need to be laid before you start to spend money. Because not only do the platforms give you credit for having those great foundations and the good engagement rates and click-through rates when it comes to doing the advertising, but also I do not want anybody to be wasting money using Facebook or Pinterest advertising if they're not actually yet ready to take that next step. But for Social Strategy Mum in 2020, we will be doing Facebook and Pinterest advertising to get our message out there further. And yet again, as I keep saying, to grow our reach for 2020. So if that is something that you feel like might be a good step in your business, start to have a think about how you might make that work, where the budget is for being able to do that, what kind of ads you would think that you would like to have. Because in the end, the two biggest things when it comes to Facebook and Pinterest advertising is you need to know what the objective of your advertising is so that we're able to actually see and make sure that we're meeting that objective. But the second thing is you do have to have some budget available in order to be able to do that advertising. The one caveat I will put on that though is that lead and traffic costs on Pinterest are so incredibly low still. So if you do only have a smaller budget, rather than going for the popular and more expensive Facebook advertising, it might just be worthwhile having a think about Pinterest advertising instead, particularly if you are already leveraging Pinterest without advertising. All right, so there was 5 things that Social Strategy Mum's going to be doing to grow our reach in 2020. 2020 is the year that is all about reach. We are going to be doing the repurposing. We're going to be doing the interviews, guests, and collabing. We're going to be working in Facebook groups. We're going to be thinking about Pinterest, and then we're going to be moving in to Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest advertising. So I really hope that that gives you some good ideas about how you could be upping your reach and some insight into why we need to be bringing new people into our ecosystem. The final thing that I want to say is you can't know if something is growing if you are not measuring it. And that means that you need to know where you are right now in order to know where you're going and in order to know if you actually got there. So I have a little solution, a little freebie for you that will really help you when it comes to this process. And this is my social media health check. This is a tool that I created. It's a little guidebook and then an auditing tool that you can download. And this allows you to actually go through and track where you're at and look at your numbers. It takes you through the insights. It explains all the different bits and pieces when it comes to your insights, because so often people don't actually know what they're looking at and what numbers are important and aren't important. And then it allows you to get a snapshot of where you're at right now and then gives you the option to continue to track that as you're moving as well. So I've popped the link for that download somewhere right near this video right now. And I really hope that that will help you to be able to track what's happening, see where your reach is at right now and where you might want to focus in order to be able to grow your reach in 2020, just like I will be doing. All right. I think that's everything that I wanted to share with you tonight. Thank you so much to those of you who are listening or watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe or like the page, depending on what platform you're watching on right now. Follow along with me. I will be live on Facebook every Monday night. The podcast will come out every Wednesday morning, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys more in 2020 and work together to grow your reach. All right. Good night.